It is a lonely and silent world without baseball these days, and so since we don't have our national pastime to go back to whenever things get dark or lonely right now, and since I've already gone through most of the games that are archived on YouTube, I thought that I would read you a story of my own baseball experience from my childhood. This is a story called The Fat Kid Steals Home, which first appeared in Tales from the South, a radio broadcast a few years ago, and I dusted it off for today. Like most members of the writing cast, the things I care about most happen only in my head. True, there may be a corresponding reality out there somewhere in the cold world of empirical truth, but that's not where the most meaningful things reside, at least for me. They locate themselves in my thoughts and memories, where I can both love them and manipulate them into what I want them to be. All of which helps explain why I tried to play Little League Baseball. I spent my childhood listening to the St. Louis Cardinals on our local AM radio affiliate. Announcer Jack Buck described what I assumed were real events that took place in ballparks I had never seen. Busch Stadium, Candlestick Park, Wrigley Field. But my experience of the games was something different, my own recreation of the plays in my imagination. And in my head, the throws were always perfect, the hits all line drives, and the umpires all fools. The ability to imagine a reality that wasn't really reality led me to determine that I could be a baseball player too. Never mind that I was the fattest kid in our elementary school, easily twice as heavy as our diminutive shortstop Kevin. Forget that I had the worst eyesight in third grade. Disregard my general lack of coordination, my weak throwing arm, my inability to outrun my mother while she push mowed the lawn. In my head, I was a ball player. My mother went along with the delusion and perhaps even encouraged it. She bought a double XL polyester pants and a new jersey for me, along with a set of cleats from the discount shoe store. I used a glove my grandfather had found while mowing roadsides for the highway department. Someone got me an aluminum bat, with which I promptly broke my brother's jaw on a backswing, hitting off a tee. But all the trappings of athleticism could not produce in me the real thing. Over the course of the 5-week season, I struck out in every at-bat except one, my only contact resulting in a ground ball so weak that the catcher tagged me out. With each at-bat, my poor mother suffered that special parental pain that comes with watching your child fail repeatedly in public. All of this was verifiable fact, and taken together it constituted a clear message. I was not cut out to play baseball, even at a 10-year-old level. I would have been better off practicing Spanish or learning calculus, but I didn't. Instead, I spent my afternoons tossing baseballs into the air and trying to hit them in my backyard. When the shadows grew long enough to cover the front yard, I threw tennis balls against the side of the house to practice my fielding, while all the while listening to Jack Buck narrate my spectacular plays as though I were filling in for Ozzie Smith at Shea Stadium. In my head, it all made sense. When you develop such a powerful ability to frame your experience of the world without regard to the facts it presents, your career options are limited. You can write, but you will likely also want to eat. And so you get your bachelor's degree in English and you work at Starbucks. Or you do what I did and go into church work. 15 years after my Little League debacle, I found myself drawn to seminary by a grand religious vision of peace on earth and goodwill toward all. It was a world I had never quite inhabited, but one I knew in my heart had to exist. The problem with my career choice, it turned out, was a familiar one. I kept striking out, metaphorically speaking. I did more funerals than baptisms. I worked with colleagues whose ordination made them no more honest and no less self-absorbed than anyone else. I once preached a sermon on caring for the sick at 11 a.m. and then an hour later broke up a fight in the trustees committee over whether or not to blight the front steps by installing a wheelchair ramp. "You're crazy as you keep working as a pastor," my friend Billy said. He became a college professor and a consultant. Now he does extreme workouts a few times a week, and he owns a boat, learns new methods of fishing, sews a lot of masks these days. Doesn't involve himself in the pettiness of religious life. But Billy, like me, is a writer at heart, and we tend to feel the injustices of the world at a more acute level than the masses. As we became more jaded with religious enterprises, we looked for other outlets for the good we knew was hidden somewhere in the world. I buried myself in the novel I was writing. Billy built a cabin entirely by hand. In the years since, he started a popular website devoted to living a simple, uncluttered life. We each developed our vision of how the world should be. His is more tangible, probably more stylish, but no less delusional than mine. Billy and I talk sometimes about the arc of our lives, how messed up the world seems to have gotten, how hard it is to get out of bed some days in the face of such widespread suffering and exploitation. But then one of us will tell a story. "That last storm blew a tree over in my neighbor's yard," he'll say. "Justice came over with his chainsaws and we got it cleared out." "Anybody get hurt?" I'll ask. "No, but it destroyed the neighbor's truck. Justice thinks we can fix it, but it'll take a couple $1,000s. We're taking up a collection to help out." And I'll pay for a meal, tip my server, and give Billy whatever is left from my change to help fix the truck. Then I'll think of his story as I drive home and match it up against the pettiness of everyday religious life, which I'm sure still causes Jesus to weep. One is the reality I live in, the other the reality I believe in. And faith in this light is not conviction, but the choice to remain hopeful. At the end of that long season of baseball failure, and what would prove to be my final at-bat in my baseball career, the story on the field finally caught up to the one in my imagination. The pitch came in, and I swung as hard as I could. I cracked a line drive into the left center field gap. My mother's voice rang out. "Run!" she screamed as the other moms watched in stunned silence. "Run! Run!" And so I ran, as fast as my little legs could carry me, which is to say about as fast as the proverbial turtles in peanut butter. A ball hit that far would easily have been a home run for anyone else on my team. Not so for me. I made it only to third base before I gave up. While the other team relayed the ball back to the infield, I stood on the bag and gasped for air and tried not to throw up. When I could finally bring myself upright again, I looked over at the bleachers. My mother stood, clapping her hands and beaming with delight. It was strange to see her from this angle. In fact, the whole world looked out of sorts. I had never seen a baseball field from third base before, not even in practice. What exactly should one do in the face of such stunning success? I stepped on my shoelace and quietly undid the knot, then called time so I could lean down and come up with a plan. As I knelt in the dirt to retie the shoe, the reality that I was the fat kid, and half blind, and slow, and unathletic did not enter my head. I only saw the possibilities of my situation. There were 2 out. We were down by a run. These are the circumstances from which heroes emerge. I looked toward home plate, only 60 feet away at our age bracket, much closer than it had looked from the bench. Jack Buck's voice was in my head. "He's got that look about him, folks. There's no fear in this base runner." The pitcher looked in for the sign. I dug in my left foot into the side of the base and leaned forward.